Alrighty, lads. Good morning. Let's talk about Wild Blue Yonder. I know I've had quite a few hours to sort of prepare this review, should I say, of last night's story, Wild Blue Yonder. My goodness, I think a vast majority are going to agree with this, including myself. Last night's Doctor Who definitely was on a scare level that we've never seen before in Doctor Who. It's a very it does play with your mind. This one, trust me, especially for those who haven't seen it will play with your mind. Some of the stuff that they've been doing with this episode is just it really gets to you mind wise, and but in a very good way, obviously, because I mean Doctor Who's doing something it's never done before in this story, and Russell's already said this in interviews that they were experimenting with this whole idea, this whole interesting idea with Tom Knightley as the director. They were coming up with this really cool way of sort of scaring people in Doctor Who, and I think they've probably achieved that with this story in a completely new way, which is very, very interesting. So, without further ado, let's sort of collect some thoughts, shall we, on Wild Blue Yonder, the story that takes place in a ship on the edge of the universe where there's a very bizarre villain that we've never seen before, but it does get the Doctor thinking about what the future could hold for him down the road. So obviously we begin with the TARDIS going mental. It landed on 1666, meeting a very famous figure. Or historical figure, should I say, on top of an apple tree. Yep, that happened, and that was actually a really cool surprise that they put that as the opening scene, because obviously this whole episode was secretive. So it was a bit of a bizarre, a bit of a random but surprising start to the episode, and then we finally come to the spaceship, which obviously the TARDIS runs away with the sonic screwdriver. So obviously the Doctor did not have a screwdriver with his sonic screwdriver with him in order to get himself out of this problem. But gradually, as the episode progresses, we come across the robot and we notice that the spaceship kind of had these moments where it kind of just does this thing where it sort of moves a lot, or the whole ship just kind of moves around, and then the robot moves one step and it slows its way down to it's almost like it's slowing down to something, and the Doctor couldn't figure it out because he didn't have the translator from the TARDIS. But gradually, he figured out as we progress into the story that in fact it was a bomb that was slowly being detonated. Yes, it was basically a bomb that was being slowly prepared by the captain, that was basically on a sort of a default to slowly detonate. So that was a bit of a twist of a bit of a twist of a story. The fact that they had this whole dilemma of a slow detonation, and obviously the Doctor had to speed it up in order to deal with deal with these versions of himself and Donna that are not really themselves. And yes, you'll notice that they do encounter themselves, but this is not exactly themselves. This is essentially an enemy that copies people based on thoughts, or at least that's what it makes it sound like, especially with the fact that they try to make you think so that they can think a lot more than you, or at least that's how they're being represented in the stories, that they're being represented, that your thoughts basically make them who they are, and they try to make them more real, essentially, even though they're not real, because obviously during the episode we see this is very obviously a version of the Doctor who basically puts his head between his legs. Yes, that's how creepy this story gets. And then you see them with long arms, which was even more creepier to watch. The Donna with long arms, the Doctor with long arms, and the Doctor and Donna basically, and then they become bigger as they move across the station. It was really creepy stuff. The CGI that they've done here was very, very impressive to a whole new scale, obviously. We also did now, of course, Russell did warn us about this ahead of time, that there was a little mention about the flux in this story, where obviously one of these versions of the Doctor does point to the Doctor and says, "This is your fault, that the edge of the universe is a mess and it's got no stars," because it basically they're blaming the Doctor for it because of what happened in the flux, when technically it was the flux that caused the stars to go out because of that big flux machine that was coming across the universe. He was even trying to take the TARDIS at the same time. But yet, the fact the Doctor was getting blamed for the events of the flux really does, and it really does show. You can see the frustration in the Doctor's eyes, the fact that he was being still blamed for what happened in the flux when he was the 13th Doctor Jodie Whittaker and dealing with the events of that. Yeah, because obviously I know not many people liked the flux as a storyline. It was a very dramatic event. The things the Doctor had to go through just to prevent that bomb from getting worse, even though the edge of the universe was basically in a basically a destroyed state since the whole flux event. So you can tell that obviously the Doctor was trying to like calm down from all those events, even though he kind of snapped a little after being pointed out about it, which was But yeah, so you can definitely feel the Doctor's emotions after being told about, oh, it's your fault that the edge of the universe is done because of the flux and everything. And yeah, that was another thing to point out. And then obviously in the end, we come to the point where obviously the Doctor decides to put the detonation on a faster speed so that they basically get to the detonation sooner so that they can deal with the deal with these enemies. And the Doctor nearly took the wrong Donna because he got basically picked the Donna who had longer arms, and then the Doctor realized that wasn't the right Donna, so he finally got the Donna because he realized the real Donna was still on the ship. The Doctor finally got back to Donna and they were able to escape through the TARDIS, which was as the ship explodes and those enemies have now been dealt. Even though at the same time, Donna does bring up, does talk about, oh, what was the Doctor up to before meeting up with Donna again? And the Doctor tried to avoid the conversation quite a lot because you can tell that he was trying to avoid this whole thing about the Doctor being a woman, and obviously when he was with Yaz and Graham and Ryan and all the other companions that the Doctor had previously, and trying to basically keep that stuff secret, which was it's very interesting. The Doctor was trying to hide that information from Donna because you could imagine how the Donna would react to the whole idea of the Doctor being a woman, which would be very interesting. Like I said, it'd be interesting to see how she would react if that was ever, if she did learn about that story, which would be very interesting. Nevertheless, it was he basically avoided the conversation to the point where we would finally get to bump into Bernard Cribbins as Wilfred Mott in one of his his last performance on television following his passing, obviously, because this was the last thing he recorded was Doctor Who. And the fact that he's going to be in the series finale is going to be great because it's going to be a great send-off to him, a great send-off to him after his obviously because of the fact that he was a part of that series finale of the 60th anniversary before his passing. And it was great. He was able to do all his scenes before he passed it. So really, really lovely to see that. But yeah, so we bump into Wilfred Mott, and obviously Wilfred was very happy to see obviously the Doctor in David Tennant's body, even though he doesn't realize this is the 14th Doctor yet. He probably thinks it's still the 10th. And then all of a sudden, Wilfred mentions that, and then Donna realizes her parents are not there, or his daughter, her daughter Rose isn't there. And Wilfred said, "Oh, I told them to just get into shelter." And then the Doctor was like, "What's going on?" And then they hear an explosion. And they see people lashing out on the streets, and Wilfred's saying telling the Doctor to help the human race because all the people are literally lashing out on each other, and you start to wonder, the Doctor starts to wonder, why is everyone facing each other? And then there's a plane flying across them, and then there's this explosion that's going behind the Doctor, Donna and Wilfred, as the Doctor tries to pull Wilfred towards the TARDIS. So you can tell that it's going to be a very bad story. The amount of chaos that this next story is going to bring is just insane. And obviously you can probably tell who's probably going to be responsible for the human race going insane. Of course, it's going to be the Toymaker, because of course the Toymaker's the next villain we're going to be facing. And the Doctor hasn't faced the Toymaker since the 60s, when he was, we don't know allegedly whether it was the 60s in the show's terms, but obviously he hasn't faced the Doctor since the very first incarnation. So it's been many, many years since the Toymaker has faced the Doctor, but I think the Toymaker knew he was going to bump into the Doctor eventually, and obviously now we're going to see the Toymaker battle with the 14th Doctor next week. Interestingly enough, the trailers at the moment seem to be teasing that this is the final game that they're going to play. And obviously, we all know what the outcome is going to basically be for the Doctor, pretty much. We know that the outcome is going to be the fact that the 14th Doctor has to accept. Yeah, the 14th Doctor basically has to accept the fact that a new Doctor is on the way. And we all know what's going to happen, right? We know that Shooting Up was right around the corner, so we all know what the outcome's going to be come this next story. We know Shooty's coming, so yeah, the fact that we're going to see Shooty Gatwa in next week's story blows my mind, thinking, how on earth are they going to introduce Shooty Gatwa as the 15th Doctor? How is this man going to be introduced to us, to Doctor Who, especially to the Doctor Who fans who probably have never seen him before, depending if you've watched Sex Education or not. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but if you haven't watched it, it's going to be very bizarre for you to see this man come on board and take over David Tennant, one of your favorites. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how this all goes down next week. This whole transformation from David Tennant to Shooty going to be very, very interesting to watch. And of course, battle with the Toymaker. It'll be interesting to see how the Doctor defeats him, if he's even able to defeat him. That's the thing. And of course, we all know Kate Stewart's going to be involved because Unit are in there. And obviously Wilfred's being taken care of by Kate Stewart, so we know that Wilfred's going to have contact with Kate Stewart at some point, so Kate Stewart's going to know about the Doctor eventually. That's going to lead to this whole Unit getting involved in the battle with the Toymaker. And also we still yet to expect the return of Bonnie Lamford as Mel at some point, so there's another face we might see next week as well. Yeah, it looks like next week is going to be a very, very chaotic story that's going to end with circumstances for the Doctor. I believe it's going to end with some very, very tight circumstances that are going to really affect the Doctor in so many ways. So I beg the question: how is things going to develop between now and the Christmas special? Because we all know that after the Giggle, the next time we'll see Doctor Who will of course be Christmas Day in the church on Ruby Road. One more 60th anniversary special to go, guys, and then we finally arrive to Shooty's first story being this year's Christmas, as part of Christmas Day television. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great to see Shooty take over Christmas Day. It's gonna be so much fun. So yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comment section below what you make of Wild Blue Yonder. Was this the scariest story of Doctor Who ever, or do you believe there are many other? Or, I would love to hear what everyone thinks of Wild Blue Yonder. That's if you have seen it, that is. And then, of course, like I said, next week we're going to talk about Giggle, talk about the beginning and the end of the 14th and the arrival of the 15th, Shooty Gatwa as he prepares to take over the show. The end of the Giggle, heading into Christmas Day, which will be when we'll next see him next see the Doctor after the Giggle. So much to look forward to over the next few weeks. You can obviously tell. Hope you guys enjoy, and I will catch you all in my review of the Giggle. And also we're going to be getting some news this week, because we're going to be getting confirmed time slots for the Christmas episode of the Church on Ruby Road, as well as hopefully some more detail, obviously some pictures from the Giggle that's coming up later in the week. And who knows, maybe we'll get some more details about Church on Ruby Road as well, because I think a lot of us are very curious about what else are they going to tell us about the Church on Ruby Road, considering that's the next big story following the Giggle, and that's also the story that's going to be previewed on Doctor Who Magazine this week. So Doctor Who Magazine's going to get all Christmassy this week, talking about Shooty Gatwa. Expect loads of details about Church on Ruby Road over the next few weeks, and it's probably going to begin Doctor Who Magazine later in the week. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one.